Hey young friends, Dr. Bill here. Welcome to our continuing discussion of big names in the Bible. As always, I'm grateful that you've taken a few minutes out of this week to sit down and listen to what I have to say. Now you may recall that for the longest time we have been talking about Jesus, and we focused quite a bit of time and energy on the things that Jesus did. Just last week, however, we began to shift our focus and talk about the things that Jesus actually said. And we began doing that by taking a look at the Sermon on the Mount that we find in Matthew 5, 6, and 7. Well, today we're continuing that, and Jesus said something in the sermon that I think is also very, very important. Here it is. He said, "You are the salt of the earth. You are the light of the world." He then went on to say, salt is really good, but if salt loses its flavor or its zestiness, it's not good for anything except to be thrown out into the garbage. And he says, with light, he says, nobody lights a lamp in order to hide it. You don't put it under a basket. You don't put a bucket over it to keep it from shining. No, when you light a light, you intend for it to shine. Well, Jesus used those two things, salt and light, to describe our place in the world as Jesus' followers and what it means for us to be faithful to Him. Let me tell you what I think these two pictures mean. First, Jesus drew from something that was common and ordinary to describe how we're to go about our work in the world. Both salt and light are pretty much everywhere. Take, for example, salt. If you go in the kitchen at your home, you'll probably find a shaker of salt. Go out to a restaurant, there'll be a salt shaker on the table. And maybe if you go through your favorite drive-thru to get whatever it is that you want, the person who's waiting on you will put some salt packets in your order. Salt is pretty much everywhere. It's something everybody has access to. And the same is true of light. Everywhere we go, we see light. We go in our homes, there are lights on. We go in our schoolrooms, there are lights on. We go outside and there's street lamps and there's signs that have lights behind them. Light is pretty much everywhere. And so Jesus was trying to say, listen, when I'm talking about my followers, I'm not saying that you have to be something super duper extraordinary. You have to fit all of these exorbitant requirements. No, Jesus was said, people who are just common everyday folks, people who are like salt and light, they can be my followers. So what that means is that you and I, we're pretty ordinary. We can be followers of Jesus and we can bear witness to Him. The other thing about salt and light, when you think about it, is that they really can't be hidden. Now, you've probably had a dish or maybe a bag of popcorn at some point, and maybe it didn't have enough salt, and you tasted it and you said, boy, this kind of tastes flat. It needs something, needs some more salt. Maybe the same with that recipe. And so when you add some salt in that popcorn or in that favorite dish, or when there's salt on the chips, they taste really, really good. The salt adds flavor, makes whatever we're eating just taste that much better to us. And so when salt is in a dish, well, we just can't hide it. And the same is true of light. Now, as Jesus said, you could put a bucket over a lamp and try to hide its light, but He said, why would you do that? He said it's in the nature of light to shine, to be visible, for everyone to be able to see it. So in other words, salt and light are things that can't be hidden. And that's what Jesus wants our witness in this world to be. Ever present. He wants our witness, our faithfulness, not to be hidden from others. He wants people to say, you make life better because you add flavor and zest to it. I can tell that you're one of God's people by how you act. You make things better and brighter. Same is true of light. You help help me see things. You help me understand things, particularly about God. So the idea is that our witness, if we're salt and light, it cannot be hidden. It's just not meant to be that way. And then Jesus also used these images to give us a warning. He said, now let's be careful. Salt and light, as important as they are, well, some things can happen. He said, for example, salt, if it sits on the shelf for too long, maybe it's in an open container, it gets a little moisture in it and it kind of cakes together. And if it sits there for too long, it loses its flavor. And so when you taste some, you go, ugh, that's no good. And the only thing that you can do with that salt is just throw it out. It's not worth anything. And then light. Light has to shine. Just this week, I was here in my office and one of my lamps, the light bulb went out. And I had to put in a new bulb so that the light would shine and help lighten up the place in which I do a lot of my work. Now the old bulb, I guess I can recycle it, but the truth is the old bulb is not worth anything because it doesn't shine light. It's just plastic and glass and some other elements. And it's really not worth what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be a light. And so Jesus used these images to remind us that if we're not careful, if we work too hard blending into our world, not being salty enough, not shining bright enough light, he says, well, then we lose our witness and we become useless. We're not good for anything in terms of what God is doing. And so he says, salt, if it loses its flavor, not much you can do with it. Light that won't turn on, won't shine, well, that means there's going to continue to be darkness all around. So Jesus warns us, if we're going to be his followers, we have to stay on top of our game, to be salty salt, and to be turned on light. So here it is again. Jesus said, you are the salt of the earth and the light of the world. That's really, really good news. And I hope it's really, really good news for the world in which we live in. Well, that'll do it for today. As always, I'm really glad that you took the time to listen. If you have any questions, you know how to get in touch with me. I'll be happy to speak with you at any time. In the meantime, I hope the rest of the week goes really, really well for you, and I ask that you'll just take good care of yourself. Bye-bye.